We're here today for a book unhaul. Hello friend, how are you doing today? My name is Mary, this is Happilyeveresch, and today we are unhauling books that we don't need in our life anymore. They have been on my shelves for too long, and now they are first going to the used bookstore to see if I can get some bookstore credit, and then after that will be donated with whatever my bookstore doesn't want. But yes, I've never actually made a book unhaul video, usually because I just like pull one or two off my shelves and donate them, but I've been collecting used bookstore books, and so I have a big unhaul today. So here we go. I have a few different categories. I'm not going to be chatting too much about these books, and I would love to know if you loved them or if you were begging me to keep them. That's fine. I would love to hear all of your thoughts, opinions, comments down below, but just know when you see this video, these books will be gone from my house. So let's just hop on in. Got a lot of books to talk about. So this first set of books are books that I've read and no longer want on my shelves. I don't keep books that I rate under 3 stars on my shelves. And so yeah, these are books that are all going to be hopefully going to another home so they can be reread and enjoyed by someone else. The first one of those is a recent read, What We Lose by Zinzi Clemens. I just didn't really connect with this. I would check out more of this author's work. This was her debut, so we'll see what she writes in the future, but this one was okay for me, and I hope someone else will read it and be excited to find it either at the used bookstore or the thrift store. Next, a book I really despised. It's a YA like horror novel. It's called The Call. I lost the dust jacket, but just like thinking about this book makes me like, well, I did not enjoy this one at all. That one is going away. One that is very much beloved but just didn't like hit the right spot for me is The Ocean at the End of the Lane by Neil Gaiman. I thought this one was really atmospheric and cool, but again, just kind of like the magical realism was too much for me. The Housekeeper and the Professor by Yoko Ogawa. This was fun, short, sweet, a little bit heartbreaking, but again, just didn't blow me away. And I think someone else will be really excited to find this one. It is translated, so I haven't read a lot of translated work, so I'm glad that I got, but yeah, this one just didn't like blow me away. Another book that I really wanted to love but just didn't is Dragon Springs Road by Janie Chang. Again, a really cool atmosphere, but it just didn't quite do it for me. The storyline was a little odd and a little cheesy at times, so yeah, just wasn't a hit for me. Another one that you maybe have seen a recent wrap above that I really disliked was Bring Me Back by B.A. Paris. This is a thriller that I just thought was ridiculous and silly and not thrilling at all, and so it's going. And then last but not least, I definitely enjoyed this, but it's just not one that I need to own, and it's not one I'm continuing on with the series, and that's Saga Volume 1 by Brian K. Vaughan and Fiona Staples. This, a couple years on BookTube, like when I first started BookTube, was all the rage. Everyone raved about it. I couldn't find it at my library where I lived a couple years ago, and so I ended up buying it. I like off used books or something. I bought it online, and it was fun. I enjoyed it. But again, it's just not something I'm going to continue on. Graphic novels just really aren't my jam. And yeah, I think someone will be really thrilled to find this at a used bookstore. And so I'm passing it along. But yeah, it was fun. I don't like have some of like the revulsion that I feel to some of the books in this pile. But yeah, just not one that I need to keep on my shelf. I have a next small pile of books that I own multiple copies of. The first one's a classic, A Room with a View by E.M. Forster. I got a bigger, prettier copy of this book, so I'm going to give this tiny little one away. I also have Peace Like a River that it's in this like weird, I don't know, it's almost like a library bound book. I bought this for my mother-in-law and she read it and then gave it back to me. She just doesn't like collect books, and so I'm keeping that paperback edition and gonna get rid of this one. And then also Empire Falls by Richard Russo. I found a gorgeous kind of huge floppy paperback that's just a prettier cover, and so I'm going to get rid of this one. My next category is maybe one that you can identify with. That's BookTube made me buy it and now I don't want it. So all of these books are books that I probably never would have picked up if I hadn't heard someone or lots of people raving about it on BookTube, but I've just decided that they're not for me. So the first one is The Devil in the White City by Erik Larson. This is nonfiction dual timeline, or I guess two storylines maybe, of like the World's Fair in Chicago and then also the series of murders that happened. Yeah, I just have heard enough that I don't think that this is going to be a nonfiction for me, and I don't want to read it. And so I will be able to very easily find this at my library or audiobook, or probably also at a thrift store if I want to read it sometime in the future. So this one is getting off my shelves because I don't want to look at it anymore. Next in my BookTube made me buy it and now I don't want it is a whole horde of fantasy. When I first joined BookTube, I watched a lot of people who focused a lot on fantasy, and I like fantasy, but also one or two series to be reading in fantasy is enough because there's so many books, they're so long. I'm a very like eclectic reader. I read from lots of genres, not just fantasy. So like it's so daunting to me to look at my shelves with all of these series that I know I'm not going to get to, because like each of these books represents 3 to like 10 more books, and it was too much. I didn't actually know why I owned any of these books besides that I heard someone on BookTube talking about it, so I'm getting rid of them. And the first one is Blood Song by Anthony Ryan. I know nothing about it and I don't need it on my shelf anymore. Some YA, Falling Kingdoms by Morgan Rhodes. I enjoy fantasy, but I'm getting more into adult fantasy than YA fantasy, and I just really have no desire to read this book. Same with The Kiss of Deception by Mary E. Pearson. I'm sure it's a lot of fun and a lot of people enjoy this series, but I don't have time to read another YA fantasy right now. And I have a couple on my shelves that I'm more interested in that one. This one, The Bird and the Sword by Amy Harmon, I really know nothing about it. I think I heard a couple people talking about it. It does sound fun, but I don't really have a desire to read it. And then last but not least, I'm getting rid of The Wise Man's Fear by Patrick Rothfuss. This is a huge series and definitely was a couple years ago, but it's still unfinished. Really, the first one, after sitting with it, didn't like strike me as something that I needed to continue on with, and this is a lot of pages to commit to that I just don't feel the need. And again, if I want to read any of these books, if I get the inkling, I can read them from my library. We have a wonderful library system in the town that I live in. I'm very blessed by that, and so these books can find their way back to me if it's meant to be. That's how I feel. Another author that's very big on BookTube, but I don't feel like she's for me, and then I definitely don't feel like this series is for me, and that's Firefly Lane by Kristen Hanna. I read The Nightingale and it was just an okay experience for me, and that's like some of her like highest, most beloved books. And so I found this one really cheap because I thought that I was gonna love Kristen Hanna, and I just don't think that I do. I still have The Great Alone that I'm going to give a try. And again, she's one that I can find if I decide, no, I want to read Firefly Lane, I can go back and find it at the library. So I think someone will be really excited to find maybe their favorite author at a used bookstore or thrift store. Thinking about the joy that I'm hopefully bringing into the world with this. Another book that got a lot of praise that I don't think that is for me is The Elegance of the Hedgehog by Muriel Barbery. This book is about a physical place and like the many people who live there and their like lives. I'm not exactly sure, but it's not one that's been calling out to me. I've owned it for a really long time, and so I think it's time for me to pass it along. Another nonfiction author who is much beloved, Mary Roach, and this is Gulp. I read Stiff a couple years ago, and while it was a fine read, I just didn't love it enough to pick up any more of her nonfiction, and I finally got the push that I think I'm going to pass this one along. I have a Kate Morton. This is The Forgotten Garden, and I just don't ever have any desire to pick up Kate Morton. They're just hefty historical fiction, and I don't know, they just never call to me, and so I just don't need to keep it on my shelves if I'm never going to read it. And then last but not least, I have a copy of Gone with the Wind by Margaret Mitchell. I don't know, I've waffled about whether I'd like to read this or not, and right now I'm landing on not. And if I decide I want to later, I don't really want to read from this tiny mass market paperback, so I'm okay with getting rid of it, and we'll see later in life if I feel called to it, we will find a different copy. Next, I have some hyped books that I've owned for longer than I've been married, and I'm not gonna get to them. The first is The Curious Incident of the Dog in the Nighttime by Mark Haddon. I know this book was hugely influential when it was published and has made such an impact, but I'm not sure that it's a book that I want to read. And so yeah, I know it's well beloved, but I haven't picked it up in 5 years and probably not going to. 2 Jonathan Safran Foer books, Extremely Loud and Incredibly Close, and Everything is Illuminated. I bought these because they were popular, but I don't know anything about them, and I've never had a desire to read them, so I'm going to get rid of these. I have a Gillian Flynn, Dark Places. I just am not that into thrillers, and she's a little too gritty for me, so I think I'm just gonna pass this along. And then also The Brief Wondrous Life of Oscar Wilde by Junot Diaz. I've read one of his work. It didn't blow me away, and yeah, I'm not that interested. And so this one is also getting donated. And then last but not least, I have a small pile of books that I'm not sure why I own these. When I go to my shelf and look at them, it's like, I don't know why you're here. So I have A Yellow Raft in Blue Water by Michael Doris. Know nothing about it. No Country by Kalyan Ray. Don't know. Cleopatra by Stacy Schiff. I have Roses by Layla Miakam. I'm not sure. It's a pretty book. It's got French flaps, but I'm not sure why I bought this. Probably because I thought it was pretty and it was $1, if we're being honest. I also have a collection of short stories or short essays called Home, American Writers Remember Rooms of Their Own. I think I tried to read this and it just wasn't for me. I love the concept, but yeah, I never get into it. It's a really pretty book. Like the inside looks like French doors and like a clear, but yeah, I've tried a couple times and couldn't get into it. I also have Coming Home to Eat, The Pleasures and Politics of Local Food. Again, a nonfiction that sounds interesting, but I've never actually picked it up to read it, and I probably won't. And then last but not least, The Dove Keepers by Alice Hoffman. I have read some Alice Hoffman and enjoyed it, but haven't picked this up in the years that I've had it. I'm not sure why I bought it, and I think I could probably find another copy if I'd like to read it that doesn't have the library stuff on it. So that's it. Those are all the books that I'm unhauling. It feels very good and like cathartic to get rid of some of these books. I have so many books that I'm excited about on my shelves, and I want to be excited about the books I own, and it's time for these books to find a new home. Thank you guys so much for watching. Like I said, I'd love to know any of your thoughts, opinions, or some of these your favorite books. I'd love to know, even though they're not with me, I'd still love to know your experiences with any of these titles. Thank you so much for watching. Please subscribe if you have not already. I'd love to have you here on my little bookish part of the internet. Please like this video if you enjoy unhauls. I love watching them. I love the idea of getting rid of things that you don't need, decluttering your life. I'm here for it. I'm here for it. So thanks so much for watching. I'll talk to you later. Bye.